All right, in this video, I would like to discuss the question whether a risk manager should be an enabler or a bad cop. And you might wonder what I mean by posing this question. Well, the background is that risk management is still a fairly young discipline, and the role of a risk manager is not always well defined. And many risk managers find that it's often up to themselves to create a role in the organization for themselves. So what kind of role should a risk manager assume, and how should they present themselves to the rest of the organization? In this video, I'm going to discuss two different visions of what a risk manager should be like, and that's the enabler and the bad cop. And this theme is extensively discussed in my book, Empowered Enterprise Risk Management, co-authored with Petter Kapstad. All right, so the bad cop type of risk manager is basically some kind of controller who's mostly interested in containing various threats to the organization and not necessarily in a very collaborative spirit. Whereas the enabler is a completely different vision. Here we're talking about the risk manager as a partner in strategic decision making. So the enabler works with managers on issues of strategic importance, like business decisions and policies and that sort of thing. And they're contributing towards value by providing tools and know-how, essentially, that help managers make better decisions, so that you can argue that risk in return is better calibrated than before, that you adjust for risk in your decision-making in a better way. And that over time will translate into a more optimal risk return profile and value for the organization. Whereas the risk manager as a bad cop, well, here we're talking about making sure that business units comply with the whatever has been agreed, and that they report the risks in a timely fashion in the way that they're supposed to do, and that no limits are exceeded. Obviously, that's an important thing to check. And whenever business units approach senior management with a business proposal, the risk management function is supposed to critically evaluate this and look for, indications that risk is too high, and this kind of gatekeeper role. And this bad cop version of risk management is found primarily in the financial industry, and you can appreciate this point by reading this book here, Swimming with the Sharks by Lewandijk. And one of the takeaways from reading this book is that the performance pressure can be incredible in these financial institutions. And what happens when you create super ambitious performance targets for people is that they will just go for it, and in order to be able to meet the targets and cash in on the bonuses, and that will generate reckless behavior in many instances. And history has taught us this, that whenever people are aggressively pursuing targets, that very often translates into heightened risk and more reckless behavior. And this helps us understand the three lines of defense model of risk management, which is effectively a way to contain the negative side effects of these performance pressures. So that risk management is obviously one of the lines of the defense here, right? Trying to protect the organization from these threats. And it's a very defensive notion, obviously. But you need something like that probably if you are operating your business in this way with these supremely aggressive performance targets. All right, so in non-financial firms, the situation is somewhat different, I would say. The performance pressure is not quite as intense. It's still there, obviously. All firms more or less managed by setting up targets and KPIs that can be sometimes very ambitious, and you get some of the same, but it's usually not to that degree, right? And you don't have risk limits to police in the same way, because you don't have trading desks like some financial institutions and that sort of thing. So do you even need to talk about a backup persona in the context of risk management then for this kind of firm? I think if you do things right and present yourself in the right way, you don't need that version of a risk manager at all. So let's talk about how to get there, to a position where we don't really need to rely on a backup type of risk manager. And first of all, what we're trying to do here is inform the leadership of the firm about the risks that matter. And this information has to be supplied by the business unit, right? And you have to make sure that this gets due attention by these units. And this is where risk governance comes into the picture. And this is about creating expectations about risk management, that we now expect you to do certain things and be responsible with respect to your risks. And you set up some incentives along those lines as well, so that people are incentivized to act in a proactive fashion when it comes to risks. And you set up various lines of communication so that information flows in a good way between different parts of the organization. So if you do these things, I mean, then the incentives and the expectations are such that you get the kind of behavior you would like without having to police people and take a aggressive stance towards them. So let's work with expectations and incentives rather, and then forget about the risk backup risk manager. So you shouldn't present yourself in this way then, that we're here now to make sure that you're delivering on the requirements, that you're staying within your limits, and that you don't go off doing anything crazy. Now, that's not a very pleasant way to be approached as a manager in the firm. And here's a better way to present yourself as a risk manager. That, okay, look, the executives and the board of directors, they have a legitimate interest in understanding the risk profile of the firm. We have defined risk management as a core value now in this firm, and this is how we do things, and we're here to help you deal with these expectations. So this is a very different tone, right? That is establishing a much more collaborative spirit. And this is a precondition for the enabling role. And approach this way, the business units often are willing to engage in discussions. And as my friend John Fraser likes to say, these conversations are where a lot of the value comes from in risk management programs, that you get people talking and you have these dialogues on how to proceed and what's the right path forward, given these risks, etc. So you get better decisions from this, from talking through things and looking at it in a new way. And this is absolutely part of the enabling role of risk management. You get better decision making that way. But that is not quite the strategic role where you work with the executive team now on corporate policies. And to get there, you have to prove your worth. And this is one of the things that my co-author Petter Kapstad likes to argue, that you have to show that you can make a positive difference to decision making in many instances in the organization before you get to a place where you can contribute to strategic decision making. But a possible response here is that, well, look, the executives, they were always looking at risk and return. That's what business is about. You're implementing strategies, and they are by definition risky. So, and that's been done for since forever. So, why do we need risk managers all of a sudden to come along and tell us what to do? Yeah. So basically, if you pose it as a question, it's something like this. Why would we need help running our business when that is, trading risk and return was always what we were doing. So Well, let's just say that, well, maybe there's some room for improvements here, that maybe this is not factored optimally into decision making, that there are certain biases and blind spots and behaviors that are not consistent with optimal risk management, even among managers who've been in business a long time, and so that leaves a role for risk management. We can approach risk management in a new and better way by employing some of the available conceptual frameworks and tools. Right? So that's one of the things that the risk manager can bring them, a conceptual framework, which is essentially how to think about risk management. And you can describe risk in ways that generate insights. I mean, qualitatively and quantitatively. And you can quantify the risk return trade-off very explicitly in ways that enlighten managers, like, okay, look, this is actually a new way of looking, and yeah, if we do this, then we get these consequences, and that's the next step here, to highlight the consequences of managers' own actions. That will for sure capture their interest if you can show this before and after situation, right? So if you look at it this way, the risk manager is very much about bringing superior methods. That's where a lot of the value lies. You can basically view yourself as a specialist in method. So methods for describing and quantifying risk and upside. It's also very important to be highly knowledgeable about the business. I mean, you can't function with just a lot of skills in method. I mean, that's good, but it gets even better if you can prove yourself to be very, very adept at understanding the value chain of the firm. That's when you can really start making some nice contributions to the decision-making process. So all right, so you may not need a backup persona then if you set it up like this. But does that mean that it completely goes away? This potential conflict where there are points of contention, right? And well, it's going to be hard to avoid completely. We have to be frank about that. Let's say you find that the business units are not doing their job right in terms of providing high quality inputs for the risk estimates, and well, maybe you have to take some kind of action here to get them to make them improve how they do things. And what if the executive team has committed to an acquisition, and it's clear to you that this is going to be extremely risky and maybe not a healthy strategy for the firm, but the managers, you want to see it through for various reasons. So what are you going to do in this situation? There's obviously a conflict of interest here. So again, this is a situation where we probably have to just take a stand, and I realize that we can't be friends with everyone all the time. So in these situations, risk management should choose to speak their minds and be known. And this is the point here, for always doing so. So that this is a characteristic of the risk management function, that they will always give you their fair and professional opinion on these things. And it's going to be a really good thing if this can be done with a more or less direct line to the board of directors, so that in a world-class risk management program you have that. There's no impediment to the communication between the risk management function and the board of directors. So if you do that consistently over time, you will become known eventually for competence and integrity. And these are the true currencies of a risk management function. This is again one of the key points my co-author Peter Kapstad likes to make. And But the thing is that once you get there, people will not look at you as a bad cop type of individual. They will respect your point of view, because that is what you're trying to do here. You're giving people a professional judgment, and that's all it is. It's an unbiased professional judgment, and people will respect that. And that's the kind of spot you would like to find yourself in as a risk manager. All right, so some conclusions here now. Risk management should strike a collaborative tone here with business units, and presenting themselves as somebody who can help them deal with the new expectations, and as opposed to being some sort of a police, chasing some misdemeanors. All right, so, and to get there, they have to prove their worth, and I see the way forward mainly in terms of being a specialist in method. I mean, that's what a risk manager can bring, essentially: conceptualizing, describing, and quantifying risk in decision making, because business units lack in these regards. They know the value chain, they know the business, but they don't always have the methods for framing decisions in a good way. And points of contention, then, they never go completely away. So, but rather than becoming some kind of backup persona, build a reputation for integrity and competence. And over time, people will come to respect that, and there's no need to think along the lines of a backup posture. So, all right, those were the conclusions and takeaways. Please check my books, Corporate Foreign Exchange Risk Management and Empowered Enterprise Risk Management, for more discussions. There's also information on my website, riskbudgeting.se. And as they say here on YouTube, please like and subscribe.